So I watched all the Insidious movies. I watched them all 5. And I don't love horror franchises because they're almost always the same to me, where the first one's the best, the other ones are kind of mid, and then the newest one looks the best. It looks the best. It's not actually the best, but it looks pretty good.
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
And I see it in theaters, which I don't always see the first ones in theaters. Like Scream. I wasn't even born yet. So here we are, Insidious. I watched all Insidious movies. Woo! I think Insidious overall is all right. I felt like maybe watching them all in 1 week was a little bit boring. I got a little bored as we went through the series. The series as a whole is not incredibly cohesive. It is pretty apparent to me that in the first one, they intended on making more than one Insidious movie because the ending kind of like leads you on to another one. But by the third or fourth one, it doesn't really feel like it's all the same storyline. I don't think it felt like there were supposed to be 5 Insidious. Kind of felt like there was supposed to be 2 Insidious. Another thing I don't love is the sheer amount of jump scares that they fit into these movies. You didn't have to fill the entire movie with like 100 jump scares. Like, that's not scary. That's just a laugh track. That's telling me when to get scared. I don't like that. I just checked where'sthejump.com to see exactly how many jump scares are really in the Insidious series. And in Insidious 1 through 4, there's 76 jump scares. That sounds like a lot. Jump scares are lazy. They're boring. Every single jump scare just has this loud, jarring noise accompanying it. Kind of feels like this. Kind of feels like you're jangling keys in front of my face. Like I'm 3. Buddy, I'm watching the movie. Buddy, I'm watching this shit. I'm watching the movie. And I get that this is probably common between most horror movies, but I hate that. Just be scary. You don't have to tell me when to be scared. I don't think there's a lot of bad stuff here. It follows some tropes, but I think that's okay. You know, you have the dad that doesn't believe, but in the first one, they kind of debunk that one, which I like. Let's go ahead and talk about the individual movies. So, spoiler alert for each one of the Insidious movies, but they're segmented, so you can skip them, but we're doing that now. Insidious 1, the best one. The first Insidious is pretty good. It has a lot of these tropes that I say I don't really love, like dad doesn't believe, but they like throw that one out there and then they reel it back in when they, hypnotized him and made him forget his memories so that he wasn't, a demon man. I liked that. I thought that was good. That was a good debunking of the trope that they introduced. And I don't love that the kids are always susceptible to the ghosts. I get it, because they're impressionable kids. Like an adult, if they get like met with a ghost, they just fucking move. But a kid doesn't really have any escape. Right? They go to school and then they come back home. Where are you gonna go? Hey, mom, dad, a ghost. We gotta move. They aren't gonna move. But in the first one, they actually do, which I really like. Because in the first movie, the mom is the one that's really affected, really seeing all this shit. And they actually move. They actually do the move, which I love. The first one follows some horror movie tropes, but kind of rips them to shreds, which I think is really good. They also do this really cool thing where they do shit in the daytime. That's right, the scariest sequence is in the fucking daytime, like full light going through the windows, and there's just like a red demon man running around. It's actually intense. I really like the intro sequence. They zoom in, they show this hectic ass family. The phone's ringing, the mom's making breakfast, she also has to go to work, she's also making lunch for the kids, and it's just like, it's crazy, right? I like the introduction of the scary kid dreams. I think that's pretty cool and unique. And then he just doesn't wake up. Now, I will say there's a good jump scare in this movie. You have the red man. That stuff's pretty scary. I think that jump scares can be done really well, but overusing them and using them where we expect them is bad. And I didn't really expect this red man jump scare, so it kind of hit. The movie all led up to a pretty good ending in general, I think, and it leads you right into the second one. Movie 1 ends, movie 2 picks up. Good. But later, it kind of gets a little weird, a little wacky. We'll worry about that later. For now, let's see Insidious 2. The second movie is a pretty solid second movie. You have it starting off with the backstory of Josh, which I think is good because we kind of needed that, right? We were kind of wanting that from the beginning. And then it was like weird and creepy, and it did like this I'll show you thing. And that didn't really make any sense, but it all came right back around to that, and I thought that was fantastic. Also, I'm like a little sad we didn't really see much Redman, because that's the guy that, you know, we actually care about. Like, this woman taking over Josh is just like kind of a subplot, it feels like, to me at least. The woman taking over Josh was pretty scary because, you know, Josh is kind of the backbone of the family. There's this very clear disparity between him and the rest of the family. I don't have a lot more to say about this one, to be honest, because it was kind of like good and like normal, cohesive, exactly what I expected. There wasn't really that much crazy stuff that happened in this one. Probably my favorite thing about this one is the scariness of dreams. Dream sequences are very common in horror movies, right? Because it's a really easy way to scare the people without actually like having the stakes. And dream sequences in this movie in particular are really powerful. They're impactful because the dreams are kind of real in the further. So when you have like a dream sequence, you can't really expect there to be no impact because that's like a second world. Dream sequences, when done well, in horror movies are really good. Look at Hereditary. That dream sequence is fantastic. It gives a payoff to the backstory that we heard about earlier, and it shows like, you know, the gap between the mother and son. And this one here also still has stakes because it's kind of real. So I like that. I really wanted to see more from Redman because he seems to be the actual like big villain. Insidious 3 is a curveball of the series. It's not about Josh at all. It doesn't even feature him. Actually, I think at all. It's about Elise and this like random other subplot. Once again, a subplot movie. This is where the series starts to feel a little less cohesive. And we follow this random woman. We have Elise, of course, but like I said, she dies eventually, and we know it's not in this movie. So that stakes is kind of gone. I don't know, kind of annoying. It means that like we guaranteed know that they make it, which I don't know. I don't love that, I guess. But I guess that's just a problem with prequels in general. I think the stakes were kind of removed from the movie when the movie is like trying to be the scariest one, right? But it is only really scary because it's so busy with jump scares. But this one does do some stuff really well, right? Insidious 3 has, of course, like the main character is this like girl that we've never met before. And she's just like a normal girl. And then boom, hit by a fucking car. And I didn't expect that one. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect that one. I didn't see it coming. I mean, I kind of did. I kind of felt like it was an option, but it was so abrupt and it actually spooked me. And maybe not like scared me, because I'm not afraid of cars, but it did kind of startle me. I thought she might have just died, and she didn't. But it did do this great thing that I think is actually really, really genius. Immobilized her, right? I mean, she had a cast on her legs and everything. There's a demon in her home. She doesn't have an escape route anymore. She can't run from it. Also, there's this thing that I liked where the man was in the vent and he was like running around in the vent, and you know, you could hear it. And the dad heard it and actually like took action, like went upstairs to see, you know, who that was. And then it was vacant. And then it gets a little creepy. Dad does not believe the ghost is real. And that's good. They kind of debunked it again, which I thought was interesting how they did that. Because they did it in a different way. But once again, it's another subplot, right? I want to see the Red Man shit. I want to see the Red Door. We've kind of felt like filler. It has this nice, neat little wrap up at the end where, you know, all's good. Everybody's good. And then they throw in the jump scare. The Red Man jump scare. It has to be at the end. If the Red Man was not in the movie, there has to be a Red Man jump scare at the very end. It's just how these movies are. Just so you know. Hey, Red Man's still the main plot, not the subplot. He's still here, just not in this movie. Next one. And that brings us to the next one. Here we are, Insidious 4, another subplot movie. Now this one is the least subplot of the subplots, right? Because it's kind of the origin. It's the last key, which is the Red Man. Maybe, but it's not. It's not the Red Man. It's some key hand guy. This key hand guy is pretty fucking creepy, to be honest. Like, let's be real. It's pretty creepy. He'll key your throat and he'll take away your voice, right? And all sound you can make. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was good. Like, they're screaming to get helped, and then he does that. And then there's no audible. Like, it's an audible silence. This guy is pretty creepy until he starts like running, like punching. Then he just looks like a guy in a ghillie suit with a weird mask, like a Halloween mask. You have the Elise backstory, which we've been wanting but not really needing because she's dead in the first one, and hopefully the next one follows the actual Lambert story of the Red Man, which she would be dead for. And once again, the movie itself is incredibly cohesive, right? Because you have the backstory of the dad not believing, and you have like this woman that later becomes real. Your dad was actually kidnapping women and holding them hostage in the basement, and you saw them. Elise, you saw it, but you thought it was a ghost because your dad acted like it wasn't real. It turns out that everything was real. And it's interesting because it kind of blurs the line between reality and this like further demon bullshit. It kind of blurs that line because now things seem real. And then you have, of course, like the guy that called them about a ghost. Once again, there's like a real thing happening where he kidnaps her, like kidnapped a real human. It's blurred, which made me think that the movie was going in a kind of weird direction. Like there's no ghosts or anything yet. Well, there are ghosts, but not really. But there are. There's the key guy. Once again, a lot of jump scares. There's even this one scene where I think they kind of make fun of it, where they like open a suitcase and then close it expecting a monster behind it. And then that's not the case, but there's a stack of suitcases. So then they move the next one and open the next one, and they're like, and then close it and act like there's gonna be a jump scare, and then there's not a jump scare. And then they open the next one and the jump scare's in the briefcase. I was expecting it, right? Because you built it like there's going to be a jump scare here. You're not gonna know when the jump scare is. Haha, that's the jump scare. But you didn't get me. You tried, you didn't get me. You also have pretty good classic Tucker and Specs comic relief. They're like fawning over the girl, which I think is funny.
He gets the girl, I get the
Jello.
This one was all right. It was all right. And then it wraps up at the end, and you're like, okay, cool. Elise's backstory is dealt with. So now she goes to lay down and chill, and then you get a Red Man jump scare. When are we gonna get more Red Man? Come on, give me Red Man. And it all brings us to the final one, which this is actually the ending movie, I believe. I think it is. And they deal with Red Man, I hope. Anyway, the last Insidious movie. So I just got back from the Insidious The Red Door movie, and I think it was all right. It was enjoyable. It was a little weird because I watched at 11 a.m. Yeah, that wasn't my plan. Kind of just happened that way. Yeah, Insidious Red Door, the fifth one, the ending of the franchise, the finale to the 5-movie, should have been 3-movie series. Insidious, in my opinion. I think it's the second best one. Red Door was good because it was actually like the closing piece of the puzzle that we needed, right? At the end of Insidious Chapter 2, we got the memory suppression thing again with Josh and Dalton, where it completely suppressed it and made it so it just seemed like it was a coma. But now we get to see the after effects of how that actually impacted Dalton and Josh. Josh now has like a foggy memory because he got his memory suppressed twice, which makes sense. You would expect that to happen. And because of this, it ruined their entire family relationship, their entire dynamic. This made Josh this distant person that kind of ruined their marriage. And the mom then got divorced because she just couldn't handle it. And Dalton just completely took this situation to heart, and it completely split Dalton and Josh off. And now we're seeing Dalton going to college. He's now an adult. We're now getting to see how this really affected him. He has this memory that he didn't even get sick or anything, but he had a coma induced by meningitis. So it kind of just feels like a missing piece of his childhood. His entire family kind of just tried to keep that away from him. And now it's resurfacing and he's kind of messed up. He's a messed up person. The movie had some really cool scenes. I liked it. I like the scenes. It is unfortunate that the MRI scene got ruined because of the trailer, and that's what trailers do. They like to just ruin some scenes, because when I decide I'm going to watch a movie, I don't need to watch the trailer. That's a different rant. But the times that Dalton dove into the further, first time at his dorm and the second time at the frat, they were pretty interesting, and it kind of showed the dangers of doing this a second time, but from a new perspective, kind of, right? Because he has his memory suppressed, so he thinks this is kind of his first time doing this, even though he knows it's not, because the whole door thing with the drawing, which is another thing that I liked, is how they tied it in with the drawing, because we did that in the first one where Elise was kind of drawing it. You know, she drew the red man in the daylight scene in the first Insidious, which is probably my favorite sequence in the franchise, frankly. I think the tie-in between the first and the second and the newest one was good as well, when they did like the hammer scene and it looked like he was hurting him, but he was actually protecting him from the demon. It was kind of weird and kind of felt like that wasn't planned, but worked out really well if that was the case. The Red Man didn't do that much. I did want to see more of the Red Man because it kind of seemed like it was a little easy to seal him off with the paint on the door thing, but that was cool. I liked that scene a lot. This is one of the few times that I left like a horror movie that had a happy ending and it wasn't sour. Because usually a horror movie, I like don't want to see a happy ending because it's a horror movie. Yeah, I wasn't mad about the happy ending. I was glad that Josh got his closure and is closer to Dalton now. Yeah, I liked it. It was good. I don't really have much more to say about this one. It was a good closure, and I do wish there was more Red Man. So yeah, that's all the Insidiouses. I think it was a good franchise, but it's definitely not one that's like super out there. Like you need to watch it right now. It's rated PG-13. It's pretty tame. Honestly, the biggest like death in the entire series is in the first movie, is Elise in the first movie. And it kind of sets this precedent that this world can be really dangerous and that anybody can die, even the character that kind of seems like the actual main character, you know, the one that can like deal with all this stuff and is knowledgeable. And that's not the case because she's like the only relevant death the whole time. Josh, Dalton, the little brother, the mysterious daughter that they apparently had in the 9 years, none of them died. That's really all I have to say. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe.